Hello everyone, it's Old Guardian here. In this lore and flavor of March of the Lich King video, I'm going to take a look at Frost Death Knight. The upcoming new Death Knight class in Hearthstone is built to correspond to the Death Knight class in World of Warcraft. We have Frost, we have Blood, we have Unholy, which are the three talent specializations available to Death Knight in World of Warcraft. But now we have a bit of a Hearthstone twist on them. But how much of a Hearthstone twist, how much of the original have we been able to preserve in getting these cards? So let's take a look at all of the Frost cards. There are 20 cards for Frost Death Knights, and whether there is anything that corresponds to them in World of Warcraft. I have also included the flavor text, although the flavor texts are more like cheap puns in Hearthstone than something that will actually relate to the abilities or anything like that. For example, in this one, Horn of Winter refers to mana crystals, much better than Horn of Looster. Yeah, win, lose. Haha, well, doesn't really apply to the ability itself. But Horn of Winter is an actual Death Knight ability in World of Warcraft, and it used to be a raid-wide buff, basically the battle shout of Death Knights. But nowadays it has been changed, and nowadays it regenerates resources and it is a Frost talent, so yeah, it is actually an exact match in many ways. You get resources back, it's a Frost thing. This is just a beautiful match of the card to the source material. And then we have Bonebreaker, a 1-mana weapon, 2/2 weapon. After a hero attacks a minion, deal 2 damage to the enemy hero. Many weapons are Bonebreakers if you swing hard enough. This one I couldn't find any corresponding weapon in World of Warcraft. I also don't really remember World of Warcraft weapons being so icy as this art is here, so I just couldn't find anything like this. Then we have Ymir Frostbreaker. 1-mana 1/2 Battlecry came +1 attack for each frost spell in your hand. Flavor text also gains +1 attack for each time your opponent mispronounces his name. These Ymir, they're undead half giant Vrykul, and they're some of the most fierce champions of the Lich King. Lich King created this system where Vrykul are fighting against each other, and the best ones are then the champions are turned into Ymir, these sorts of undead giants. They live in Icecrown. And there is no character named Ymir Frostbreaker in World of Warcraft, but it's just a generic Ymir baddie. Then we have Death Chiller, an elemental 2-mana 2/3. After you cast a spell, deal 1 damage to 2 random enemies. Man, death is like the most chill state. You've got nothing to do but relax. Well, I couldn't find again any correspondence to this with World of Warcraft. There is a Frost PvP talent called Death Chill, which roots enemies, but there's no character like this, and Death Chill doesn't even really resemble what this does, so yeah, just nothing. And then there is Defrost, a 2-mana spell, draw a card, spend 2 corpses to draw another. Shouldn't this not be a Frost spell? In the art we can see one of Lich King's Valkyr defrosting something. Lich King's Valkyrs did wake up the Ymir in Northrend, but I really don't see those, whatever it's defrosting, being Ymir, so I don't really know what's happening in that one. Then it's a classic Frost Strike. 2-mana, deal 3 damage to a minion. If that kills it, discover a Frost Rune card. Anyone up for some Frost Bowling? And Frost Strike is one of the main Frost Death Knight melee attack abilities. It's an ability that you use all the time in World of Warcraft, just hitting people down. So yeah, this is one of the key things that you do as a Frost Death Knight. Then we have Harbinger of Winter, a 2-mana 2/2 undead. Death Rattle, draw a Frost spell. Winter it becoming. Well, this is more like a Game of Thrones pun than a Icecrown Citadel or Wrath of the Lich King pun. And also the character, well, the character looks like your basic Death Knight. Nothing too special there. There's no Harbinger of Winter in the game. Then there's Acolyte of Death, a 3-mana 3/4. After a friendly undead dies, draw a card. I see dead people. Blood of dead people. Well, I See Dead People is of course an old movie reference. And Acolyte of Death, I mean, those shoulders and that hood, they are part of the Death Knight starting gear when you start a new Death Knight. I couldn't find a match to this armor trying to look through all the Cult of the Damned Acolytes. I mean, it looks like your run-of-the-mill Cult of the Damned Acolytes somewhere in Icecrown, but I just couldn't find an exact match to that armor, and there's no exact match to that name either. Glacial Advance, 3 mana, deal 4 damage, your next spell this turn costs 2 less. Well, this doesn't have a whole lot to do with the ability in the game. I mean, the ability Frost Death Knight is an AoE damage talent, and yeah, this isn't the AoE damage, and there's also that speed aspect, so there's not much in common at all. And the flavor text, well, flavor text is another cheap pun. You just wait. I'll get there in 10 years, and then you'll be sorry. Yeah, that would be a pretty glacial pace of advance indeed. Howling Blast is a fun one, 3 mana. Deal 3 damage to an enemy and freeze it. Deal 1 damage to all other enemies. This is a Frost DK talent that deals AoE damage. It's very commonly used. So this is actually a pretty sweet match again. For Death Knights, yelling really loudly is a valid attack strategy. Yeah, and you do yell with this really loudly all the time when you're playing a Death Knight, so okay, that's kind of nice. Rimefang Sword is a little bit of a weird one. I don't think we have this kind of ice swords in WoW. 3 mana, after your hero attacks, reduce the cost of a spell in your hand by 1. It's a 2/3 weapon. Those definitely don't rhyme. Okay, well, I mean, there is a character called Rimefang in the game, but that character is a Frostworm and doesn't have a weapon. Then there's like Rimefang's Claw, a weapon which doesn't look anything like this, so I just couldn't find quite an exact match for this one. As for the legendary cards, well, Lady Deathwhisper is an iconic character. 4 mana, 4/3 undead, death rattle, copy of frost spells in your hand. But on the other hand, this doesn't really have anything to do with what Lady Deathwhisper is like in World of Warcraft, and I'm particularly disappointed by this flavor text. Psst, omelette death fromage. Because Lady Deathwhisper is a raid boss in Icecrown Citadel, female lich, leader of the Cult of the Damned. There's ads, Cult of the Damned ads that she empowers during the fight, and she is very vocal and very, very loud. She screams a lot. She has a ton of voice lines in the game, so lots of stuff that she says, and none of that is whispered, all of that is yelled. So this is kind of the opposite of what Lady Deathwhisper is like in the game. Might of Menethil, well, this is iconic. Might of Menethil, 4 mana, 4/2 battlecry, spend up to 3 corpses, freeze that many enemy minions. Menethil's might at night fights the light, not quite the blight, right? Yeah, so they have just turned that into a rhyme. But Might of Menethil is one of the original 2-handed maces in the game from Kel'Thuzad in old Naxxramas, which was removed when Wrath of the Lich King came, so it was only briefly available. It's not available in World of Warcraft anymore at all. Very powerful strength crit 2-handed mace. Actually, I think it was the highest DPS weapon before Burning Crusade. It's not Arthas's old mace, by the way. That's called Light's Vengeance. So Might of Menethil, we don't exactly know where Might of Menethil is from. Maybe it was Arthas's father's or something. But this one is a very iconic weapon and a very rare weapon in World of Warcraft. Remorseless Winter, 4 mana, deal 2 damage to all enemies, draw a card. Has to refer to Frost Death Knight AoE damage talent. There's a small AoE damage talent that you can do for Remorseless Winter. So this is clearly that. In the Badlands, this is a rare. I don't think there's that kind of rare in Badlands, but I guess it kind of refers to Badlands being a desert. So yeah, okay. Well, it's kind of like it is in the game, so alright, that's cool. And a Repulsive Gargantuan, a 4 mana 3/6 undead, enemy characters can't be healed. You yuck, gross, icky. Stop, you're hurting my feelings. So this definitely looks like an undead frost giant, but there's no particular reference to which undead frost giant this would be in the game. And this one, this is the most iconic Frost Death Knight card that we're getting. It's Thessarian. 4 mana, 3/3 undead, reborn, Battleground Death Turtle, deal 2 damage to a random enemy. A natural born leader and an unnatural reborn leader. Because Thessarian is the first Alliance Death Knight. Thessarian is a character that you meet in Borean Tundra at the start of Wrath of the Lich King. You adventure with Thessarian. Thessarian is a recurring story character. Thessarian returns in multiple expansions, like in Legion, makes small appearance in Shadowlands. Just overall, great character, one of the most well-crafted Death Knight characters in World of Warcraft. There's a lot of stuff going on about him, and yeah, nice to see him. Nice to see him also being potentially a playable card in Hearthstone, because this is the most iconic character that we're getting. On the other hand, characters like Rime Sculptor, 5 mana 3/3 Undead, Battlecry Summon 2 2/1 Rime Elementals with Death Rattle, deal 2 damage to a random enemy, also known as a rapper, yeah, if you spell it Rime. So Rime Sculptor, you sculpt rhymes, so you're like rapper. Yeah, I get that. It looks very generic Undead Mage, no particular significance here. And the same applies to this Marrow Manipulator, 6 mana 5/5 Undead, Battlecry spend up to 5 corpses, deal 2 damage to a random enemy for each, also buffs your calcium by 1000 milligrams. So yeah, Marrow Manipulator is nothing, that's just an invented gnome Death Knight. But the weapon that Marrow Manipulator is wielding, that's Havoc's Call, Blade of Lordaeron Kings, and it's a raid drop from Icecrown Citadel. And the final Frost Death Knight legendary card is Overseer Frigidara, 6 mana 5/6, Battlecry, draw 2 spells. If they're both Frost spells, deal 2 damage to all enemies. Is your Refrigerator running? And this character is a Hearthstone original, there's nothing like this in World of Warcraft. And one more Frost Death Knight card, it's Frostworm's Fury, 7 mana, deal 5 damage, freeze all enemy minions, summon a 5/5 Frostworm. Terrible destruction, but minty fresh breath. And this is a big AoE damage cooldown that you have available as a talent for your Frost Death Knight. And it does pretty much that. Well, it doesn't summon a pet for you really, it just summons the worm that goes in and blasts. But yeah, this is another fairly nice interpretation. Overall though, looking at these Frost DK cards, there are not a lot of cards that are like directly from World of Warcraft. There's many teams, races, stuff like that has been picked, but only a handful of these are directly abilities or characters from World of Warcraft, and of course big among them being Thessarian. And then, like Lady Death Whisper, I still feel a little bit bad about the treatment she got here, because she's like the complete opposite of what Lady Death Whisper is in the raid. But anyway, that was lore and flavor of March of the Lich King, part Frost Death Knight. Thank you for watching. Click like and subscribe if you enjoyed this, and a special thanks to all of my Patreon supporters, YouTube members and Twitch subscribers who make all of these videos possible.